Hey there, Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen leading the movement for movement and bringing you another edition of Autism Fitness Tuesday training, where I take you through a strategy, a concept, a practice that we use in autism fitness programming for our ASD and neurodivergent life skill athletes to bring about the best possible outcomes in their fitness, in their strength, in that generalization to activities of daily living for safer, healthier, and ultimately better quality of life. If you have not yet subscribed, or if this is your first time on the channel, please definitely subscribe, and share this with people for whom it might make a difference if they are currently coaching or developing and implementing fitness or adapted PE programs for the autism and neurodivergent population. And talking about populations, what I'm going to go through in this edition is some of the benefits, considerations, some of the potential drawbacks, or definitely things that we want to keep in mind about individual programming versus group programming. Now, a couple different things that we want to keep top of mind. As with any other person, the neurodivergent population is going to vary in their socialization and their social abilities, and also their social preferences as well. I will say that I like training by myself or with other people around me, but I don't like training in a group of people. So it's not as though the ultimate goal is to train with a group of people. For some people, it's more motivating. For some people, it's the reason that they go to the gym or go to the fitness group, and that's fine. But we don't look at group training as the ultimate way to engage in fitness programming, because it's just not. Oftentimes, it's a preference. And there are also situations in which one-to-one is going to be highly advantageous. We'll talk about some of those. A lot of it, glasses are falling off, glasses go back on. A lot of it has to do with that individual's PAC profile, their physical, adaptive, and cognitive capabilities, and of course the aforementioned preferences as well. Do they like training better solo in a much calmer environment? Do they get motivated by a group with a lot of frenetic energy and a lot of talking or communication back and forth? Do they like being on the periphery as well? All of these things matter. So let's talk about this with respect to, first, a lot of the questions that I get from parents and other professionals, which is, do you offer, in my program, or does it make sense for, my son or daughter, my teen or adult, to be in a group program versus one-to-one? The first thing is that we are talking about fitness, which seems obvious, but we have to set the stage for this. Because we're talking about fitness, the priority is fitness. Sometimes fitness or exercise programs are used as a conduit, kind of a beach blanket setting for socialization. But since this is the Autism Fitness channel, and since this is autism fitness programming, our number one priority is fitness, developing strength, stability, motor planning, stamina for safer and more effective movement planning. So socialization, if we're going to incorporate it, is going to come at a distant second. Doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just not the thing that we're doing. The thing that we are doing is fitness. So is it a fitness program that is also including socialization, or is it a socialization program that is somehow including exercise or fitness or physical activity? And I'll say this as an aside, but a lot of group training programs are not just set up to be conducive to progress from a fitness perspective. The larger the group, the less individualized fitness is going on. So if we're going to prioritize fitness and an improved level of strength and motor planning and all of the other physical attributes, then the larger the group size, the less that's going to happen. Doesn't mean that it can't, but the less we're actually going to get, because it's very difficult to coach one person in a group of, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 or more? So that's a big question. The next question that we have to ask or set up, so prioritization, and then whether or not it makes sense from the perspective of what are we trying to accomplish. The next one is individual preference. Simply because we are in a group setting doesn't make the situation conducive to some type of automatic socialization. Certainly, it sets up the situation in a way where there's more opportunity to socialize, but social skills are just that, similar to physical skills. They are skills. So everybody is starting with a baseline, and those skills can be developed provided they are coached and supported accordingly. So just because there are 3 or 4 or 5 people there doesn't automatically mean that socialization is going to happen. It also may be the case that that situation is overwhelming for an individual and they do much better with communication and reception of information in a one-to-one ratio with a coach. So given a particular individual's profile, that may be the deciding factor. If we have an individual who often gets easily dysregulated or distracted or gets highly anxious, having that one-to-one situation, which with a lot less ambient energy going on, is probably going to be the best scenario, especially in the beginning stages of that fitness program. Here's another reason why. When we're first introducing fitness programming for an individual who has never done fitness before, never been in that environment, to jump right into a group may not be it may be at the expense of their progress or their experience as well, because they need time to become familiar with the exercises, familiar with the environment, familiar with the coach, familiar with the terminology. So add to this 3 or 4 or 5 other individuals, and you can see how it can become quickly problematic or overwhelming for that individual who's trying to take on all this stimuli at once. Now, oftentimes, and this happens especially with our certified pros who are working in a school program or in a clinic, you're going to have a small group or a medium group, because that's just the nature of the environment. However, we still want to optimize that to the individual by assessing those baseline skills, physical, adaptive, and cognitive, separately for each individual as much as we can, so that we can individualize the programming as much as is lent forward by the situation. Because when you have 3 or 4 different athletes, guaranteed, they're all going to squat at a different level. They're all going to overhead press at a different level. They're all going to be engaged at a fairly different level as well. There's certainly actions that we can take and strategies that we can use to make it beneficial for each individual there. But the question is not, and the answer is not, as simple as, oh, do we want to do no socialization, or do we want to do socialization with a one-to-one or a group situation? There are a lot more questions to answer than just that binary yes or no, group or one-to-one, if we want the individual to thrive in that situation. So let's talk about a little programming now. In autism fitness programming, and this is something that we cover extensively in the pro certification. You can go to autismfitness.com to learn more about that. In the certification, we go through the 3 different general setups that we have for a programming template, or how we run a fitness session. We have straightforward sets, so that's a 3 or 4 or 5 sets of squats or overhead presses or push-ups in a row with a break in between, reinforcer, etc. Then we have supersets. So we have exercise 1 and then exercise 2, and we go back and forth. So first a set of push-ups, and then a set of band or cable rows, and the athlete goes back and forth. The third one are circuits. So that's where we have 3 or more exercises that are done in order, and then the athlete comes back around. I'm doing the little hand motion because usually we do it as different stations. So the athlete does a squat, and then they do a band row, and then they do an overhead press, and then they do a heavy carry, and then they come back around to do the squat. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of each one of these setups. So the advantage of straightforward sets is it enables the athlete to focus on that one particular exercise, do their first set, rest, do their second set, rest, do their third set, and rest. It is a classic and proven over and over and over again strength and hypertrophy setup. So nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Works great. Sometimes, and I wouldn't even call this a disadvantage, but sometimes an athlete needs a little more stimulus while resting from the first exercise. That's where a superset might be advantageous. Or if time is a big factor, we only have 20 or 25 or 30 minutes, we can go back and forth between exercise 1 and 2. So going from that push-up to that band row and then back to the push-up, because while the athlete is recovering or resting from the first exercise, they're doing the second exercise. So they can go back and forth between the two of them. This is really good for athletes who do get dysregulated if they don't have anything immediate to do. So we might have an athlete set up where right after they're done with that set of band rows, they're going right back to the push-up or to an overhead press or some other exercise that uses different muscle groups than the original exercise. So one muscle group gets to rest, the other gets to work, back and forth. Works really well for individuals. It can work for groups. You just want to make sure that each athlete who's participating has access to the right level of modification or progression of that particular exercise. And then finally, we have circuits. Circuits work really well for group training because at each point, if you see the camera shaking right now, that's because flashes the cat. Here, let's just get a quick video of what's going on here. Yeah, thanks, buddy. Anyhow, he likes to interrupt. So circuits, we have that exercise A, B, C, maybe even exercise D. A nice thing about that with a group, now I have to stabilize this thing. Nice thing about this with a group is that at any one given point, each athlete can be doing something. So we don't have that bottleneck where an athlete is waiting their turn and getting distracted, because in a 30 or 35 or 40-minute session is not that much time. We want to get in as much movement and as much high quality movement as we possibly can for each athlete. Well, if that's going to be the case, then it makes sense that we have everybody doing something as much as they can. It also gives the athletes a nice break in transitioning from one exercise to another when they are moving from the squat to the overhead press or the overhead press to the heavy carry. All right. The slight disadvantageous component of a circuit is sometimes it takes a longer amount of time from the athlete to get from their first exercise to their last exercise and then back around to the first exercise. So it might take 3 or 4, even 5 minutes from that athlete going from the squat to the other 3 exercises and then back around to the squat. So some of the training effect that's gained from doing a straightforward sets or supersets is lost in the circuit, but it may be an ideal choice for group training because this way, again, everybody gets as much as possible. And the other benefit of the circuit training when we have a group is that each athlete can be given the appropriate modification or progression. So lower or higher platform for the squats, higher resistance band, lower resistance band. An athlete may need more cueing than another for a particular exercise. So all of these things are important factors in deciding how we want to set up that training template for those athletes. So I hope this has been helpful in illuminating a little bit some of the different considerations when working with individuals, working with groups. Sometimes as a professional, you can make the decision as to whether someone is better off in a one-to-one situation, even myself, or a group situation. And sometimes you don't necessarily have that luxury if it's, a school setting or a clinic where it needs to be a group scenario. But in both cases, these things can be optimized so that your athletes are getting the most out of their program. So it's not just let's get through 30 minutes, but let's enable our athletes to get safer, stronger, more stable, better strength endurance, so they can generalize those skills to activities of daily living, regardless of whether it's a one-to-one program or a group program as well. So I hope that this has been helpful in, again, providing some other context and some things you might not have thought about with respect to individual versus group training. I'd love to know your experiences with this, or some questions that you have, or any questions that you'd like me to cover in a completely different topical area of autism fitness, whether that relates to programming or positive behavior support or anything else you can think of, because I think of a lot of this stuff, but I want to know what you're thinking. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please drop a comment down there in the comment section below. And if you're ready to become an Autism Fitness Certified Pro and join the Movement for Movement, you can go to autismfitness.com, download the course syllabus, and when you register, you get immediate access to your pro course so that you can deliver the best possible fitness programs to the autism and neurodivergent population. I am Autism Fitness founder Eric Chessen, leading the Movement for Movement. Thank you for watching this edition of Tuesday Training, and I'll see you again soon.